Hey, can you all hear me?
Hi, Zoe. Good to see you, Zoe. Hello.
Oh, yeah, it is.
Hi, Zoe. Good to see you.
It is. Zoe decided it was Go Brewers Day. What's going on here?
What are you doing?
What are we doing, Zobies? Besides not what Dad wants.
I had to get my earphones in, Zoe. I had forgot I hadn't put them in yet. What are you doing this Sunday?
Yeah, my dad did some videos.
Yes, he's doing a video. That's true. And are you two going to a Brewers game today?
Yeah.
No.
Are we going to a Brewers game today? We, let's see. Zoe woke up and decided it was Go Brewers Day. So we.
So it made Brewers Day. Sounds like a good idea.
Here when I woke up, I saw God's fingernail in the planet and the boat trailer and that light on.
Yeah, we got up early before the sun had come up, and in her family circus comic book thing that she loves to read, one of the kids calls the very thin crescent moon God's fingernail. So she ran out this morning, was like, "It's God's fingernail." And I have an app on.
And Zoe, at very early this morning, I didn't see it. Must have been on the other side where I wasn't looking. Yep, I saw big stars, but I didn't see God's fingernail.
Yeah, and then Venus was out right by there too, so we got to see that.
Talk to me.
Well, they're talking to you.
Yes, we're talking to you.
Rosemary.
You have gotten so big, girl.
Are you big now?
You are so big.
Has earmuffs.
Yeah, she can reach.
Yes, you got your dad earmuffs. See, and I've got mine on.
Yeah.
See?
And mine up.
You got yours off. And see, Dean's are behind his ears. Dean, you got to get in the picture. So over here.
Dean's right to hide it.
There you are.
On his head.
See, he's got him hiding behind his hat.
Yeah.
He had to put his New York Yankee hat on because you have your Brewers shirts on.
Yeah, we have Brewers shirts on. Kate's got her Hank the Diamond Dog shirt on too. So when it's Go Brewers, it's system-wide.
Look it up.
Hey, wait. Who's that?
Who's that? Well, those are friends from church. So
Who's that?
what we're gonna, Daddy is gonna do some Q&A with them today if they have any questions and things, and then you are gonna go hang out with Mom. I think you're gonna go do some bubbles maybe and some other things, right?
Yeah.
Sounds fun.
I need them to be in the picture.
Well, they're definitely in the picture. You're in the picture too. You see there? Hold on.
Here.
There's you right there.
You're going to go in those.
Yeah, people are gonna go in those. All right.
There's Joni.
Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So we are recording this for
Hey guys, stop.
future generations / people who weren't able to make it today.
Hi.
So we'll definitely
Hi.
record the time that my 3-year-old took things over. So hey, why don't you go with Mommy?
Mommy.
Oh, Mommy's on loop. Hey, you can go watch Mommy. It's like when we do story time. Maybe we'll even sing some songs and dance. All right. Well, nobody submitted to me any advance warnings of what they wanted to talk about, so it is a free-for-all. I'll be happy to answer whatever's on your minds, or try to at least. So what's cooking these days? What are you thinking about? Not everybody.
I was actually thinking of sending you a note that said, could we have like 10-person discussion groups or something like that? But then I thought, I suppose it would just be a pain in the butt.
Discussion groups for what?
Whatever. Your sermons, your brilliant sermons, of course.
I like this one. I'm gonna pin her. Make sure everybody gets to hear that. I'm glad this is recorded too. You know, one of the things that Dimitri has actually been thinking about Dimitri's kind of the guy who pushes us a little forward when it comes to like exploring exactly how much opportunity we have in kind of the current technological pigeonhole we're in. And one of the things that he's suggested is perhaps hosting what they call viewing parties. So that like this Zoom, let's say that maybe you, Heidi, create a Zoom link and you invite 5 or 6 or 10 or whoever many people you want to into your Zoom meeting, and then you can stream via screen share the online service. And so then folks can get together and watch all that together. So rather than like me hosting this and so that everybody who wants to can show up, it would be allowed, so like little smaller groups. Some of the very, very large churches in the country are canceling worship. One of the largest ones in Atlanta is canceling worship through the rest of the year and doing everything in small groups. So that's something we can explore, but the initiative would have to be on all of us, so that maybe we had 3 or 4 hosting each week. But at the same time, we have a lot of people who are enjoying watching these on Wednesdays and things like that. So it is a different universe. I was joking around the other day. I finally get what Lionel Richie's been talking about when he's been singing that things were easy as Sunday morning. Like that hasn't been true for me for over a decade. But that's a good question. What else y'all got? Oh, Deb, sure. Raise your hand. That's adorable.
Tom isn't available to be with us, but he had a question about church finances.
Yeah.
I wanted to know if things were going well, if we are struggling.
No, honestly, we are in very good shape. The biggest problem is the market. Last year, we received significant gains from our investments. And this year, as many of you know, looking at your own retirement savings and your own investments, they're just not as robust. But in terms of just member to member, person to person giving, things have kept very consistent, and folks have remained very faithful during the pandemic. And that's been one of the great signs, as the church, that we are still the church. That it's not we were never the what have you done for me lately, but that people are being very faithful. At the same time, of course, we are saving. We have less expenses, so it is a bit of, it's one of these where a little column A, a little column B. But giving has been very good, and so we're very thankful. That's a great question. Oh, Pat. Oh, you're on mute, Pat. Official quote of 2020. You're still on mute. I like how everybody knows what this means, right?
If you're hosting, Brett, you might be able to unmute her.
I'll ask you to unmute Pat, and then you can just hit yes.
Okay.
There we go.
Now can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. And this might have been explained before and I missed it. But how come some churches are opening, not necessarily Presbyterian, but they have conditions in place, the masks, the pew spacing, and so on? How come we are not doing that?
Well, I mean, that's a good question, and that's naturally where a lot of folks are going. Many churches around the area, even in our area, are hosting in-person services. Their dynamics are very different. A lot of this is contingent on kind of what the church is like. And so, I talked to the Episcopalian priest here in town, and the bishop, in the overarching kind of, ecclesial universe, said that, okay, this county and this county and this county can open, but not Milwaukee County, because Milwaukee has a very different set of circumstances and realities. For us, the task force that was formed determined that, given what's going on right now, not only in the kind of the universe about how COVID is still spreading and how we've proven to be pretty ineffective at curbing it in any sort of real way, the robustness of the online services and the reality that we want to be as inclusive as humanly possible. And to do that, we need to be prepared for when folks will rejoin the church. And we're not there yet. Mostly because we don't believe it's really safe come out just yet and gather in groups. You know, we've crunched some numbers. We have looked at a lot of different avenues of inquiry and have determined that really it's not safe yet. But I'll tell you what, Paul Bargren and Kevin Shostrom are on that task force. Paul and Kevin, do you all want to add anything to that?
I can't.
I know this is short, on the fly here.
I think that we have felt that the quality of worship service would not be very good.
Why don't you just quit fiddling it and let's listen?
We would find ourselves sitting apart in small groups with masks. We would not be able to sing. We would not be able to pass the offering plate. We would not have a choir. We would not have a social hour. We would not be able to greet people before or after. It would be a very stark service. According to the Presbyterian guidelines, there was even a question as to whether people over 65 could even come to worship, although I think that's being challenged a little bit. But there were other restrictions. There was a question as to whether ushers would have to meet you at the door with a thermometer, you know, and possibly turn you away or ask you if you've been sick. We took all that into account, plus the Presbyterian's directive that we not hold services, and compared that to what we have right now, and felt that what we have now is quite a bit. So those were some of the factors, and I think there's probably a lot more that we talked about in our task force, but those were some of the things that stick out to me right now.
I want to add that, and this is actually going back a step from where Paul started. The numbers in Milwaukee County just are not good. We are, at least I look at the reported case numbers, deaths, hospitalizations every day, and they don't look good right now. And they don't meet the guidelines of the CDC or the Presbyterian. So that means that the task force has thought pretty clearly that we're planning to open up sometime in the future. We're talking about plans and how to do it, but now is not the time.
Okay, thank you.
Really what it boils down to. And, you know, I attended a webinar that was actually excellent. And so if you've ever been on a webinar, you know that's rare, about just this. Church, it's called COVID Science for Churches. And, you know, the Presbyterian executive who led it, who has a degree, who is had been in the pharmaceutical industry as well as a scientist herself, indicated that it's, you know, that we may not be singing in church for over a year, that we may have significant disruptions in the church, you know, from turning off the air conditioning and the heating for services because of the cycle. It's very different, but at the same time, I'll tell you, Pat, that we are making preparations so that when we are able to come together, that we will still be able to worship in the style that we hope for. But it's going to require significant changes. You know, so for instance, Dimitri has been working on how to put together virtual choirs. And, but at the same time, you know, if, according to the numbers that Beth Wilkinson crunched together, that if we were to observe the social distancing spacing, the maximum amount of people that we could have in worship at any one time is just under 80.
Okay.
So it's you know, a lot of changes. It's going to be like this for a while. And the idea of being back to normal, where we could have a cup of coffee and we could sing loud, you know, the scientist who I spoke with said that singing a hymn is akin to 4 minutes of continuous coughing. So that was a sobering statistic there. So it's a challenge, but you know, things are being worked together. We just really want, when we are able to come back together, that it's worship full, and yet it's safe, and we've mitigated as many risks as possible.
Okay, thank you all.
Absolutely. I'm going to put in my headphones here because, as you can see, I'm out on my porch. So I don't want to, let's see. Give me a thumbs up if you can hear me. Can you hear me? All right, perfect. All right, what other questions do we have here? I've muted some of you just out of courtesy, but feel free to unmute.
Are we in good contact with shut-ins and people like that?
Yeah, that's really job number one for a lot of us. The deacons have been doing a great job. Members themselves have been reaching out to folks. I've been making calls. Most of our homebound folk are if they're living in nursing care facilities or retirement communities, have very strict standards on the allowable interactions and what they're able to do. And part of that too is usually very, I wouldn't say restricted is the right word, but underwhelming internet access. And so things like the sermon by phone or the worship by phone that you hear me plug pretty much every Sunday, although I think I left it off this one, is a big part of that. We're making calls, we're sending notes, we're reaching out as best we can. Most folks are just in a holding pattern. You know, Kate kind of crunched the numbers for me and my family. We're on day 157 of essentially lockdown quarantine. And so if we haven't figured out how to do some of this by now, I don't know that we would have. So we're doing our best, but I would say that, you know, if you've got friends at the church, give them a call, you know, reach out, see how they're doing. And if anything comes up that you think is, you know, that makes you go, you know, give me a call, shoot me an email. I'd rather hear about it. I'd rather hear from 50 people than nobody. But thank you. That's a great question. Others?
Could you remind us what the normal office hours are?
Yeah, normal is a little bit of a misnomer here because we're pretty flexible. Traditionally, Cindy's in the office probably about 10 a.m. to 3 or 4 most days. We have staff meeting. We've kept that up. We do that via Zoom. That's from 10 to 11 on Sunday or Wednesdays rather. You know, the office doors are locked intentionally. Usually if you come in through the office doors, those 2 wooden doors are unlocked so that mail carriers can drop off packages and things like that. But in terms of getting actually in to be face-to-face with anyone, you have to be let in. So we're asking folks not to just come by the church, you know, unless they've got some business. And I know that's antithetical to the way that we usually do things, but office hours are open. You can also contact Cindy and she can tell you exactly what you'll be there for that day. I'm in the office in the mornings, Tuesday through Thursday, to get some work done for sermons and for, you know, just general pastoral house upkeep stuff. But predominantly I'm working from home and, you know, kind of remotely, as we all are now. But I'd say the best thing to do is if you've got to drop something off or pick something up, contact Cindy and in the office, either call or email. That'd be ideal. That's a great question.
Yeah, we were just out doing errands, round and about. I said, well, we'll just stop by, drop off our pledge, and there was nowhere to do it. There was no way to do it. Nobody was home. So maybe we should have a drop box or something.
Well, you know, that's part of the problem too, is that we have this mail slot, as many of you know, and the amount of like building concrete wall you have to get through in order to actually get it into the basket behind is quite thick. And so half of it's very wide. And so half of the mail kind of gets caught in between. And so I'd hate for your personal information, like checks and things, to be stuck in there too. This is probably a good opportunity to plug our online giving, which I know that a lot of people don't like, but I'll say that from a security safety perspective, it is top notch. It's not to be, you won't be penalized if you use your checking account. It's a great way to give. Especially I'd say in this time. So if you want to just make your peace with it for the time that we are socially distant, that was one thing, and go back to checks. Otherwise, you know, if you want to hand deliver it, you got to touch base with Cindy. you know, there's a lot of these things that are just like, man, I wish we could do things the old way, but you know, the old ways are you know, there's an asterisk next to those right now. Good question. What else? Are you raising your hand, Rosemary? Or are you wiping something off?
So just to comment on the giving, since many of the people on this call this morning are in their retirement years. So for all of you, if you have it automatically given out of your retirement, it's a straight thing. And when you get your automatic deductions, it reduces your amount of income you're using.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of having it out of your regular checking account, switch it to your retirement accounts, wherever that money is flowing from, and causes less complications, gives you another benefit, less complications at tax time.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of benefits to giving electronically, including ease. That's what Kate and I do. It just gets directly done. Good questions. What else you got? John Krugler, is your hand up? You got to unmute.
There
we
we
go. Perfect.
Okay, what I want to know, speaking of the financial, is how are we doing, or don't we know? Because this has been a very different time. Are the pledges keeping up?
Yeah, that's one thing that we've discussed. Yeah, the pledges are going very well. All things considered, people have been inordinately and abundantly faithful during this time financially. I think if you were to look at the tail of the tape, the greatest deficit, the greatest gap that we have from this year to last year is the investments. And so our investments are nowhere near where they were last year. We've been fortunate in terms of folks giving. We've also benefited from people having some foresight into being able to participate in the payroll protection, grant, I think is what we could call it, or loan, payroll protection loan that was offered. That allowed us to continue to pay, for our employees during this time when after everything just started up, that many folks were just, it wasn't safe to come out. But yeah, we've been well. We've also received our Presbyterian Loan and Investment Program loan for the HVAC capital work, and that's great too. All that work is done. I've got a new little fangled air conditioner in my office, as well as the other ones that you're able to control right then and there. And I can tell you from experience that after walking through the building, and you saw Kevin's member minute, our system is top notch. So we've got a lot of good stewards of this church, and I'm very thankful. Excellent, good question. What else is on your minds? Oh, Luke Hartz, go ahead.
I just wanted to have we lost any members to the COVID-19?
No, not that I'm aware of. We've had a couple folks who passed away in the very beginning. Don Gunnarsson passed really right as we were shutting down. The very last thing that took place in the life of this church was his service in terms of in person. Jane Katsoon passed away, but none of the deaths that we have experienced have been due to COVID. I am understanding that there have been folks who, kind of have a degree of separation. But the other part of this too, from like a HIPAA perspective, I'm not sure that I know of anybody who officially, forthrightly, has, cause of death has been due to that. In fact, my understanding is that we haven't had a great many folks who've been affected, but there have been some. Yes. Let's see. Somebody, Catherine Doomer, you had your hand up. Make sure to unmute. There you go.
You mentioned sometime back about taking down the Black Lives Matter sign from in front of church.
Yeah.
And that concerns me.
Mm-hmm.
Nationally, our church has stood for that. So I just wondered what was the decision, or where are we at with that?
Yeah, notice, I'm glad you brought that up. The reality was, yeah, you're in the earmuff now.
Yes, I agree.
Really, what it boiled down to was that the sign appeared, and I was not nobody with session was not contacted about putting it out. And so the reality is that until we can get session to officially displaying the sign on church property as a statement of the church, that we are going to take it down. It's in a safe place now. I've made my stance on Black Lives Matter, I think, very clear. I am for it. I think it's a good cause. I think it's an important work. And I would, personally, for me, I would want the church to approve. So I need these back. This is the only way that they can hear me.
No.
Yeah.
I just want.
So, personally, Brett Swanson, I would want our church to make a strong statement in favor and against racism in our community and nationally, which I think Black Lives Matter articulates well. At the same time, though, I'm not unilaterally able to make decisions like this for the church, and I don't want to set up a situation where we're monopolizing or politicizing our lawn space, for things like that. So unless the session approves, we will keep it down. But I hope they will. But at the same time, this is the way that we govern as Presbyterians. And it needs to be a statement from the church, because I think then it's stronger. That's my main point, is that if Wauwatosa Presbyterian says that at this time we believe the Spirit is calling us to align and promote Black Lives Matter as a way to end racism and bring about greater justice, then I think that's far, far stronger than someone, myself included, who just pops a sign out. Hey, Zobies, why don't you go and... We're having a lot of feelings these days. Okay, let me put these back in.
I can totally relate.
You'll see her.
Yeah, we've all been there, done that.
Yeah, I was going to say. All right, what else can we talk about? If you're muted, unmute yourself and just start chatting. If you want me to call on you by raising your hand, I can do that. If you are muted and you start talking, then I can't hear you. Al, did you wave over there? Al, I can't hear you, although it doesn't show that you're muted. Worst case scenario is you could pop something into the chat and I can try it that way if folks are having microphone issues. No, I can't hear you, buddy. Why don't you work it out? See if you can work that out, and I will. And then if not, pop it in the mic, pop it in the chat, and we can go from there, or just start talking, and I'll get you. Other folks, Deb.
Excuse me, the Christian Ed Committee had sent out a little survey about what we might want. And I was wondering if anything had been decided about adult ed.
No, Lisa Valente Jordan, who's the adult ed chair, who was responsible for that survey, I don't think has made any decisions. My hope and the hope of the COVID task force was really to empower all of our committees, but adult ed included, to see that when we get to September that we continue to educate and enliven the life of the church, and to do things via Zoom as best we can. I know that she's working on that. She's been on vacation just as of most recent, and drove 30 hours to out west so that she could finish hiking the Pacific Trail. With Beth Verley and Teresa Mottman. So they've been incommunicado. So we'll hear something more of that soon. I'm hoping that when we get into a rhythm, to start asking folks if they might want like a weekday Bible study or something that we can do during the Sundays as well. That's a good question. Other folks? Yeah, Brian.
We missed the first part, so this may be redundant, but is there any thoughts on a target date yet about when we might get back? Looking at the end of the year, next year, any idea?
Right. One of the things that we've come to the conclusion with is that a date on the calendar really is only as good as the information that you have the moment that you put that date on the calendar. And so, Originally when this all started, we thought we were just going to delay for the month, and then it was 2 months. And now what we've determined is that the date on the calendar is like the when, but really it's the what that's the most important thing. Like, what is the conditions of COVID in our area? What is our ability to see the downward trajectory? What is going on in terms of the community spread? And so when these parameters, when these thresholds are met and the boxes are checked, then we could start working on scheduling something. But to schedule it now, I think is premature. And then also to forecast the date going forward is, I think, just sets us up to continually either have to bump back a date or to reevaluate. I'll tell you from my perspective, and what the literature is saying is that we should start making our peace with the fact that we might be doing Christmas Eve service digitally, remotely, and that it may be, and that will probably be remote through the remainder of the year. If you were to ask me right now, the webinar that I was on suggested that, based off of the way that clinical trials and vaccine research works, is that she would expect that we would see a vaccine of some sort probably in the first quarter of next year. But the way that gets rolled out and how it's administered means that folks like you and me are probably pretty low down folks like me are pretty low down on the totem pole as not being a first responder, as not being in the higher at-risk groups. But it's going to be a bit. And so I would say we need to work on ways to make sure that we're still church for everybody. And I think we've got worship pretty down pat, I'd like to think. We've heard a lot of good responses. The next phase of this is, how can we care for each other? How can we educate each other? How can we, serve one another? But I appreciate your question. All right.
Looks like Al is still having trouble getting on. Can we give him any directions?
Well, I think it could just be he's muted now. Al, I'm going to ask to unmute you, see if that does anything. If it doesn't, you can pop in the chat and I can answer that for you.
That white bars.
So it's tough. Zoom is buggy. This is also part of the reason why we opt not to do worship via Zoom, is simply because there are just a legion of potential.
Al, do you know how to write a chat? Down at the bottom?
Yeah, so it's just frustrating. We run in this too for our little book group, is that sometimes the camera doesn't work, sometimes the microphone doesn't work. All right, what other questions y'all have?
This is really different question, but what is our church's stance on abortion?
As a church, like as Wauwatosa Presbyterian Church, or is like the Presbyterian Church? Well, I think I read your lips and you said both.
Yeah.
In terms of where this church in particular has come down on abortion, much like the question regarding the Black Lives Matter sign, if the church has made a statement regarding abortion, this Wauwatosa Presbyterian, that the line in the sand, I don't know. I think that from the Presbyterian Church, I can direct you. I don't know off the top of my head exactly what their stance is, but I can direct you. I can send you an email exactly on their stance, which I believe that they have put forth one. I've got my phone in my hand right now. I'm gonna look this up.
I was wondering on today's meeting.
Let's see. Right. So there are resources available, but I don't. Let's see here.
He's reading.
Yeah, I'm looking at this now. You can see me with my phone here.
Yeah, we haven't seen it yet.
Yes, I don't know, to be perfectly honest. And I can tell you, I don't want to guess. So that's something I can email out to you, share with you a link.
Okay.
All right.
Notice Al has a message in the
perfect
in the chat now.
Al, wondering how today's reading is not the message. I was wondering how today's reading is not the message the squeaky wheel gets the grease. Well, I kind of think it is. In terms of, so the lesson today was from Luke 18, 1-8. And there's the unjust judge who has that very heavy-handed statement. It says, I don't fear God or respect really anybody. As a judge, he elects just to continue to brush off this widow who has a legitimate case and needs this judge to rule for her justice. But what ends up happening is she just essentially keeps on petitioning and wears him down. And the judge finally just says, all right, I'm going to find in favor of you just to get you off the docket. Jesus's point, if you take that story right then, it's exactly the squeaky wheel gets the grease. But I think that Jesus's point is that, as I mentioned, that God is not like that judge, that the judge who just throws up his hands in the air and goes like, let's just get this lady out of here. Jesus says, like, it's not like that at all. In fact, God covets your prayers, enjoys your prayers, loves your prayers. And so what I think that the moral of the story is that like if the wheels, spinning wheels get grease, and when we're squeaking, we can be, to work this metaphor, we can be confident that we'll be cared for. That was Jesus' point in the parable. I think that forces us to start reconciling the fact that, there are times that we are going to be squeaking, even though we are under God's love and care. And so what we do in our prayer helps, say, as I mentioned in the sermon, what we say about our God and what we say about what we want and how we are refined through that process. That's a good question. Little miniature Bible study there. Don.
Is anybody working on the opportunity for virtual coffee hours that might be over Zoom like this and the chance that we get to interact going forward?
Yeah, Dimitri has talked about, and I mentioned to Heidi at the start of this, that Dimitri has floated the idea of perhaps hosting essentially viewing parties over Zoom. So that I use the example, let's say Don, you set up a link to host a viewing party with 5 or 6 or 10 or whoever folks to join in, and you share your screen and stream the posted worship service. And so you watch that together, you sing together, you're active together, and then you hang out afterwards. We hope that in the coming months, really in September, we're going to try, or maybe even August at the end of this month, trying to promote this idea for folks to think about doing this. That way, I think that it engenders greater conversation, greater community, and that if folks are willing to essentially host these, that we can start scheduling them and printing them in the bulletin and the weekly information. But I think that that's the cleanest, and I say cleanest way because, like you remember the congregational meeting we did via Zoom and there were 91 people on the call. We couldn't very well fellowship that way. There's just too many folk. But a group this size, I think, would be just fine. That's a good question. All right, other folk.
Brett, can you hear me?
Yeah, Ed, how we doing?
Oh, pretty good.
Good.
So, a couple of questions having in the financial area. On the $600,000 for the HVAC system they dealt with, is there going to be a solicitation to start funding that?
Ultimately, yes. One of the problems that we ran into, or one of the problems that happened to us really with COVID, right? And it's immature to even think that like this was a problem best for us. It was a problem for everybody. Was that we were all set. We had brochures, we had a schedule, we had a plan that we would conduct our capital appeal with Jim present, and that one of the last things that Jim would do would participate in that. And then we went remote and COVID happened, and it turned out to be far, far worse than we were anticipating. And so there is a box of brochures, there's a box of mailing, there's a plan ready to go that will launch at the right time. I think about that passage. For everything there is a season. And I'm going to work with the folks who've been helping us think about how to strategize and schedule something so that folks understand that this is a need of the church and it's important, but I don't want, from a brass tacks perspective, Ed, I don't want to solicit funds during a time when people are just worried if they're going to even have a job, or if they're going to have, if their retirement's going to tank, or if they're, if they're not sure they're going to be able to get peanut butter.
No, that's fine, Brett.
Yeah.
But the point is that people over age 70 and a half, who part of their income comes from an IRA. Now, Rosemary touched on this, but I'm not sure the context of what she said. But I do know that if you're over 70 and a half and you have an IRA, you can make your church contribution directly to the church. I do it every year now.
Yeah.
And I do it annually, so because it's just one deal then, but straight out of my IRA, and therefore it is totally untaxable to me. It's like a full tax deduction for it, right? Because it's the way it's set up. Now, what I'm getting to is some of us may want to go ahead and make our significant part of a contribution to the HVAC situation, you understand, this year. Right now, the stock market is at a break-even point. So most people's IRA accounts, I don't know most people, but a lot, my own I know, are at a break-even point for the year to date. So it's some opportunities that people shouldn't wait till January to deal with. They can deal with them this year.
No, I agree. And I think that, if let's say, Ed, if I was in your position, what I would say is I would contact Cindy in the office and say, because the worst kept secret in the church is, right, that we're going to do a capital appeal, right? And so to say, like, Cindy, I'm sending a payment, I'm sending a check, I'm sending my contribution for the capital appeal for when it happens, so that you can take advantage of, like, giving this year, and then that money will be dedicated towards that. It wouldn't get used for toilet paper, or, like keeping the lights on. But I'd want to make sure, if I'm in your shoes, to contact Cindy in advance, or contact Cindy as you're doing this, to make sure that we know that this is what it's for. And I would say that, if I'll mention this to Cindy on Monday, to see what she thinks about this, and set up a system by which we can do that. The reality is I think that for a lot of folks, the capital appeal of the HVAC system is kind of a no-brainer. Like, they understand why we need this and how we need to pay for it. Other folks need to be made sure that this is a worthwhile investment in the life of the church. And so people fall in very different places along this spectrum. And I think some folks are ready to give right now, and other folks need to hear the story and why we're doing it. So if you are in that first part and ready to give, I'd say let's, you do not need to tarry, and can make sure that we just are set up to do it.
Okay, that's fine.
Great. Rosemary, are you weighing in on this part? Okay.
Yes, some of us have already made that donation, and Cindy already has it set up.
Great.
It's already come back on our reports every quarter. So any of you who want to do what Ed is suggesting, it can already happen.
Great.
One thing I would suggest to the committee is you may want to be sending out thank you notes to those who have. That has not occurred. And the thank you portion of any major campaign is a very important part. That piece, I don't know if Cindy hasn't notified the committee or what, but that piece is not happening yet. At least it hasn't happened to us. And we gave some time ago.
No, from my perspective, I've been completely unaware that folks have donated towards the capital appeal.
Yeah.
So I'll check in with Cindy.
Yeah.
Excellent. Ed, did you have any other questions there? Oh, Dean, are you talking about the same thing?
Yes, and I just want to clarify.
Hey, Dean, mute or turn off the volume on your other computer there.
Yeah. I'll get it off.
All right. Otherwise, there's an
Go ahead.
echo.
That donation needs to be made directly from the IRA.
Well, it doesn't.
And the other thing, too, is I would urge you to start the campaign and not wait. I mean, people make their own individual decision. If they can't make a payment or whatever, they won't. I mean, but those that can will. So I would urge you to proceed. Yeah.
Well, yeah, we'll take that under advisement, definitely. Thank you. Other folk.
You can hear, can't you? You can leave it as I got it. Then.
Anybody have any other questions there?
I have a question.
Remember,
this changes the subject, so maybe I can wait, but. Okay, remember did we give Pastor Rand a present?
Yes. Yeah.
And what it was supposed to be to continue his trek in Spain.
Mm-hmm.
So he did get it. I haven't heard anything.
Yes. On the day of the parade, beforehand, we shot a little video where we are putting where he received the gift and said a few words. I'm putting together essentially a video retrospective of that day. You know, when I'll say just from like a brass tacks point of view, between the member minutes and the worship services, video editing is a significant portion of my life. And so it takes significantly longer than well, let's just say it takes a long time. But I will say that, yes, Jim and Sarah received the gift from the congregation. We did not want to tarry in giving him that. The total was quite generous. And the understanding is that we'll go the ultimate goal is that we can continue to walk this journey with him and Sarah, that we sent him on back for his sabbatical. But the reality of things right now is just the way it goes. That's a little bit like your earmuffs. So yes, I was under the impression that, and I'll say that Jim and Sarah got a list of all the folks who donated, although I don't believe how much everybody donated. So, and I wouldn't, knowing Jim and Sarah, I would not surprise that you all would start getting thank you notes very soon. All right. Any other questions?
Just to follow up on that, Brett.
Jessica.
There is a thank you that I have in the wings from Jim for the newsletter. So I think there'll be more coming, but wanted to make sure everyone was thanked, and you will see that in the next newsletter.
Yes, thank you, Jessica. Great.
To Jim one time, I don't think they're going to try to walk next summer, even if it were possible, because they think everybody who didn't walk this year is going to jump on next summer. So it might take a little while
yep.
for them to get back.
I think you're right. Other questions, if there are any? Do you have any questions, Zoe?
So yeah, we do still have Albert said, I completely agree with your message of what are we really praying for. I think we commonly don't think through what we really need from God and rather are asking for band-aids to instant problems.
Yeah, that's my point exactly. Al and I are just like this. I think for me the reality is that it may seem like a throwaway kind of phrase to ask who is your God, right? But in reality, that I think if you understand your understanding of who God is should ultimately influence the thing that you pray for, right? Because, you know, as I mentioned, I think I mentioned in the sermon that, you know, I remember standing in line at the gas station in Columbus where a woman was buying a lottery ticket, praying that God would let her win the lottery. Mm-hmm. And like the God that I believe in, me, like, I would never expect that if I win the lottery, that this was the work of, that the God said, like, Brett Swanson, he needs to be crazy, filthy rich, right? Or, you know, that, because I also don't believe that, you know, God is the one who's, you know, willy-nilly, you know, making decisions, you know, and so I think that I don't know what that is. So for me, the idea of knowing who your God is also influences what you pray for, and then ultimately how those two things come together to refine your prayer life. But yeah, I agree. You know, so often we're just looking for band-aids, you know, just to get us over this hump, right? All right. Thank you, Al. And I see that Deb Bergeson Graham put up something regarding PresbyterianMission.org, which houses the theological stances of the PCUSA. It is a length. If she's referring to what I think it is, it's a lengthy article on abortion. So Diane, you could take a look at that. Yeah, I've got my guest commentator here. Okay, so you come over here with, hold on. All right, someone asked me a question. I'm going to put myself on mute here for a second.
You're all quiet.
If anybody wants to ask a question, go ahead.
Okay, I've got a technical question. I've just noted that on your Sunday sermons, the recordings, the audio has been very good on there. I'm just curious to see how you're setting that up and what you're using, just for my own interest. Chance of doing that?
Oh, okay. So you're asking about the audio and the recordings.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's very good on the video. I'm not really into video production, but
Yeah, I'll tell you.
You're using it.
I'll tell you, if you look at the very first recordings that we did, they were shot just with the iPhone and using the internal microphone in the iPhone, which is quite poor for anything other than very kind of up close work. It's because the microphone is buried deep into the phone. So when we discovered that when we started shooting in the sanctuary, that the echo was so substantial that we needed to mitigate that. And so what we do on Sundays, and we use a lavalier mic. So you'll see a little lavalier mic on my shirt when I record my pieces. Although if you are paying close attention, we're okay. If you pay close attention this Sunday, you'll hear that my audio recording for the sermon was a little more echoey than it has been in the past. That's because my lavalier mic connection failed. But in terms of recording for music, Dimitri comes on Thursday and brings pretty much a mobile recording studio with him. And then Dimitri, as somebody who is literally our musical maestro, right? He goes through and he edits things and gets. Zoe, I need you to either just make a decision. What's going to happen here? Okay, you put that one in. And so then he edits all the audio to make it, sound as best as it can.
Okay,
we're 100%.
Does your lavalier plug into your cell phone, or?
Yes, it plugs into my cell phone. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And so, your phone has great capability in terms of recording video, but audio, it's pretty negligent. So we got a second, aftermarket secondhand microphone. Scoot over here, Zoe.
Okay.
And it, it's $30 on Amazon, and it's going to work for as long as it does, and then we'll get something different. But I will say that part of the, I'm talking to you today over my new laptop, which if you are not on session, you don't know, because we discovered that with all the goodwill that it's come out of these online worship services, that into the future, we're going to continue to record services, video and audio, and post them even after we're meeting in person. And so the video editing software we had been using up until this point, Zoe, don't pull that out, is, to talk to Stephen Hudson Merritt would say that I've been using the free, essentially, Yugo version, the Lay car. And what we have now is the Formula One Ferrari. But the problem is that my perfectly good computer for essentially just doing word processing and internet stuff and email and the occasional thing here and there just did not have the guts. And so that computer, I bought that we got that in 2017 when I got here, is essentially just, it's been taxed out. Like it's a shadow of its former self. So we invested in a very strong, very robust laptop, which I'm speaking to you from now, that allows me to use the video editing software that Dimitri has been using, and now we can share responsibilities. So for instance, Dimitri does all the music, and I do most of the prayers and spoken parts. And we're able to share this work together. So some decent investments have gone into the worshiping life of this church, in terms of technology. And we assume that down the road, that will also include a decent video recording setup. One of the problems we're going to run into ultimately is that, as you know, like, as we discovered, nothing happens here without also kind of, like, it's one thing to just get the brand new thing, and then you got to learn how to use it. So if we get into videography, which we will, we're going to have to also train the next season, the next iteration of people up in the booth, so to speak, so that they can make sure that we're recording or we're live streaming or whatever we're doing. Hey, Lorraine, you're much better looking than that other guy who's there. So it's good to see you. So that's a good question. All right, my assistant is retreated. So any other questions for me?
I would make a plug for the Sunday evening discussion of how to be an anti-racist. The first meeting last Sunday was really wonderful. Brett is a great teacher, and he put us in small groups, and we had very meaningful discussions. So if you were thinking, I don't know, it's good. You should.
Yeah, we're meeting Sundays at 7 p.m. via Zoom here. And whoa. And part of what we'll do is we're reading in chunks. We're going to do this for 4 weeks. This first week is the intro and chapters 1 through 4, which may sound robust, but it's really not that many pages. And have discussion groups and breakouts, depending on the number of people there. It's been good. It's a challenge. It's going to be a challenging read, of course. But if you picked up a book called How to Be an Anti-Racist and you thought this was going to be, then ouch. It's going to be, it's going to be challenging, but it's intended to be. So that's why I assume that not 10,000 people are signed up to read this book. Okay, I don't know what you keep on doing there, Bunny, but no, it's good. I hope folks are going to go. And this really is kind of a test case for us, thinking about doing CE kind of things, into the days that come.
Okay.
Excellent. Well, I got about a half hour left if you want to keep going. But if anybody's got any questions, feel free to answer them.
The only, if I may speak up a little bit.
Yeah.
I think the job that you and Dimitri are doing with this video thing, like I just saw the Memorial Garden one.
Yeah.
That you guys put together and put a nice title thing on it and different things. It's just marvelous what you guys are doing with those minute things and can be done.
Well, thank you, Ed. I really do appreciate that. I was joking around with the personnel committee that at the 2021 terms of call, I'm going to ask them to call me, pastor, head of staff / executive producer. The learning, I was very, very thankful that I had at least a little bit of experience in the iMovie video editing software. And then that got us so that we made a decision very early on not to do Zoom. Because by the way, the internet connection at the church is terrible. And so we did, you remember those first videos shot here on my porch. We were able to cobble those together. And then Dimitri was, from the work that he did with those virtual choirs, kind of got a great lesson in what's called Adobe Premiere Pro. And that's what we're going to be using now. And the learning curve is fairly steep. That's a professional video editing software. But for the little moment for minutes, I still go to iMovie so I can just bang them out real quick. But I really do appreciate that. And we're very thankful for the fellowship committee who's been soliciting those moment for mission submissions. So, we're always looking for more content, things that people are up to, kind of, oh, awesome. Thank you. I really do appreciate it. And I've been very thankful for all the folks who've gone out of the way to say kind things about our worship services. It's been a lot of hard work, but a lot of really good hard work, and I'm thankful for the role that I've been able to play in those. Awesome. Well, quick before she comes back. What else is on your mind? Anything I can answer?
I would say that I've felt like I've really been to church. And, everybody says, well, haven't you gone to church? You haven't been to church? Well, I have been. And yeah. I feel very much a part of it that way. And I like the fact that it's not just you and some musician, but it's different liturgists and what have you, people throughout the congregation.
Yeah, that's been one of the great things that we were able to do is early on to, especially after Jim left, to start getting more people involved. And, I would love for everyone who is at least comfortable with their phone, just to, whatever you do, please shoot it this way, landscape, to consider being a liturgist. We get you the information early on. You can record it. There's just a couple little tips, and so like you want to avoid things like this, and then we edited that together. One of the things that's going to change when Dimitri goes back to teaching full time is that the Thursday night when we record the music that you see the Halverson singing and some other folks, those Thursday night recording sessions are going to stop. Dimitri's schedule can't have him come down in the same fashion, I think. But also Dimitri is working on the virtual choir solutions for these things. So I do think, though, why we may not see the live music being sung, we will see more choral stuff going on. But like for everything, there's a season. There's things going to change, and we're already exploring what we're going to do during Advent and how we can make. I don't know about you, but Advent is my favorite time of the Christian year, and I want to make sure that that's meaningful and worshipful, for us, and then also encapsulates the spirit of what this church does during Advent. So it's going to be a good challenge, but it's going to be a challenge. Excellent. Y'all have any other questions for me? Rosemary, go ahead.
I would just say thank you for starting to talk about Advent this early, and especially the task force committee that it came out 3 or 4 weeks ago already, thinking about having a virtual Christmas worship, because it's already has us thinking creatively how we will host family events, which we've done outside in the winter. We're not going to have our parks and want to be on a picnic, but looking at campfires and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because, if we host family events inside, we're right back where we are now, possibly with what's going on. So you're actually broadening a whole lot of things as we go through this. Yep, thanks.
Excellent. And did you say that you were considering a Christmas Day picnic?
Yeah, we've done it before. Yep.
Mental note.
So we've been out, I have pictures of us being on winter walks in January, because we have 2 birthdays in January. We do winter walks and campfires and hot dogs then. So, and that wasn't because of COVID. It was because we're an outside family in the winter. So they are possible.
Our first winter here, Kate signed us up for a candlelight walk along the Henry Aaron Trail, the Hank Aaron Trail. And I'm like, what is this nonsense? And it's just like, and there's just tons of people. We had a fight for a parking space, so I'm adapting to your winter ways here. Oh, I just heard something the other day about a friend of ours who named their kid Winter, which, I mean, that's challenging, right? Because it's like, there's half the time I'm like, man, winter sucks, or like, man, this winter is so harsh today, or like, like, man, every year winter is responsible for 10 deaths of homeless men. These are the jokes, folks.
Yeah.
Hold on, Paul, you see what I did there?
Brett,
Yes.
have you made your cardboard cutout so we can see you at the Brewers game?
I got a funny story about this. So you all know that this is like my one hobby, going to these games, and I can't even watch them on TV now because we don't have cable. So I listen to them, and sometimes when they're on the Spanish channel, I'll watch that. But I get to work on my Espanol, which is not great. So not great that I can't even remember how to say not great in Spanish. One of the things that happened was that because of the group that I'm with, that I play Dungeons and Dragons with and have some fun with, the Bowers and the Mottmans and the Valente Jordans and the Veerleys and folks like Susan and that, I guess they all pitched in, and now I have a cutout somewhere in the stadium. I have no idea where it is, and I don't even think Lisa knows exactly where it is yet, but I search every once in a while because I saw a funny thing online about how some of the funny pictures that were, and somebody for the Oakland A's used his mugshot, as his picture, and now there's dogs and all sorts of things. So I really do miss baseball, but I will not go back. until it's all clear. And I think it's a little superficial kind of first world problem way that I understand how deeply our lives are changing, and and how it's just fraught right now. Absolutely. I know all our lives have changed. I mean, I miss you all deeply. I'm thankful for the opportunity you all have given me as the pastor of this church to figure out how to serve you during this time. I've made mistakes. I've had tough situations forced on me. I've had folks angry at me because I can't do what I want. I can't do what I want to do and what they want me to do during this time. Along those lines, I'll say, friends, like if something happens regarding your health and you're hospitalized, please let us know. But also, please know that I can't show up at the hospital. I can't go to the nursing home. I miss baseball too. I have a member of this church. His mother is in hospice, and due to COVID restrictions and everything, he's not seen her since March. And so I need, if it comes down to that, we're in, if where death is imminent, it's a different story. But please keep me posted and let me know. But also know that I have to do I have to play, by the rules of the hospital, but also think of everyone too. It's tough and sad. Very much so.
Brett, I've got a question for you.
Yeah, Susan.
So up until now, I'm like, I don't have any questions. I was just like seeing everybody and hearing what's going on. But when you were talking about Advent, is there, I guess, what are we doing about, and if you don't know, that's fine, about the alternative Christmas market and supporting St. Ben's and stuff that the Christian Ed usually does?
Yeah. The short answer is I don't know.
Okay.
But I will say that one of the things that is going to happen is that we need to also call a spade as to what entities like St. Ben's, like Repairers of the Breach really need. And that right now they do not need me to come and like sling soup, right? They need money. And so I think the mission blitz as well as some of these other things that are going to go on are going to make a much more significant appeal towards financial giving. But I see your hand up, Dean. But right now, in terms of like very specific, how nuts and bolts, I'm not sure right now.
Okay.
Dean, what were you going to say, Dean?
You said, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Can I?
Yeah, go ahead, Dean.
You can hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. The mission committee is trying to sort that out. That's a very good question regarding the alternative Christmas. So we're working on that in the months ahead. We have tried to be as active as possible. Obviously, we've already gone through the spring mission blitz. So what we decided to do was to give donations to all the organizations that we had queued up to do the mission blitz with, which was Repairers of the Breach, Guest House, Victory Garden Initiative, and Sojourner Truth Peace House. What we're looking at for in these donations moving forward in the months ahead is we've identified 3 organizations that we are associated with that all are focusing on voter turnout. So that's Common Ground, Wisconsin Council of Churches, and Souls to the Polls. So those are the organizations we'll focus on as far as donations in the month of September to get them funding to focus on the whole issue of voter turnout. So again, I would certainly, all the people on this call, I think, have been involved in our mission projects at one point or another, either donating individually to them or to in some of the group projects like Mission Blitz, certainly the Alternative Christmas. So I think the committee is certainly looking for ideas and suggestions in terms of how you would like to see the committee functioning moving forward, given the circumstances we currently face with the pandemic. So just throw that out there.
Paul.
Stephen Hudson Merritt mentioned at the last task force meeting that he's hoping for an online alternative Christmas of some sort. So I gather he and others may be working toward that.
I really do think that the moral of the story for the remainder of this year, right? If we're just gonna make a generalization right now, is that anything that takes place in the life of this church is going to happen remotely, online. And, you know, we originally had hoped that we were going to be able to do an in-person, socially distant, outdoor, going away, bon voyage, you know, farewell, Godspeed for Jim and Sarah. But it just so happened that the window that we had was at one of the worst upticks. And so we adapted.
And it was a good one.
It was. At some point we might move to some version of an in-person something. But right now it's really just not safe. I think that's what it boils down to.
Right.
So that's where we are. But you know, hopefully, you know, things progress. But my understanding too is that, you know, folks in the know, epidemiologist types and alike, are anticipating that we're going to be in for a rough fall as well. So I don't know. I wish I did. But thank you for asking there. Other stuff, other questions, comments, concerns, verbal abuse.
For
Hold on a
those
second. What are other churches doing about mission? Well, one of the responses that came out of the Wisconsin Council of Churches survey was that many churches are transitioning to hunger-related issues because of the ability to collect items via drop-off and then drop them off socially responsibly and you know, physically distant. We have maintained our current commitments, giving financially. No in-person stuff has really taken place at the time. We're looking for creative ways to give. I know groups like Habitat for Humanity are already working on ways to work in person, but you know, in terms of what I'm advocating for is no in-person mission service at this point. I think the best thing that we can do is, if you are financially able to give to either give to the church earmarked for mission or give to the mission of your choice, you know, directly. There are times when really all they need are dollars. You know, so like St. Ben's, for instance, needs they've had to do everything essentially to go takeout, and how they're able to pull this off is a great challenge. And places like Repairers of the Breach, I know, need things like laundry detergent. You know, so either we drop them off or you pay for them to do it. So Tippy has several programs. That's right, Al. I'm glad to see you're always consistent on the Tippy. So, all right, Catherine, thanks for coming. She signed off. All right. Anything else for the go to the order? I got about 15 more minutes, and then we're gonna call it. Yes, Rosemary. Are you waving bye-bye? Okay. Thanks for coming. Other questions, comments, concerns, ideas, recipes? Kate makes sourdough bread now, which also is responsible for erasing all of the weight loss that I earned over Lent. I went vegan for Lent. I don't know if you all knew this. I went vegan for Lent and lost a bunch of weight, and essentially have stayed vegetarian now, and kind of like 70% vegan still. But turns out that sourdough bread, you know, doesn't help. And I don't know if you understood this, but you all know that butter is delicious. And so butter on fresh made bread is a tough nut to crack. So I'll have to work on that. And then Heather Lee, who many of you know, has been thinking about me as she's been serving church. So she came over the other day with this massive pan of eggplant parmesan and one of her epic desserts. So I'm sending you a link right now to sign up to feed me. So Zoe got to eat spaghetti for the first time, you know, like the type, and that was adorable. She's pretty adventurous in terms of her food most of the time, so we're trying new things too.
That's good.
Yeah. So everybody doing okay? I'll take this opportunity to ask some questions. Yeah. What's been very life-giving for you all during this COVID stuff that's not church related?
What do you think? Life-giving?
What's been life-giving? What's been empowering? What have you loved to do? What hobbies have you taken up? What have you been up to during this COVID time?
Reading and listening to different music and taking walks with my dog. And I'm doing Zoom with college friends from 40 some years ago. And it's been interesting to over the country and have all different situations. But yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. What about some of y'all?
Lots of jigsaw puzzles.
Jigsaw puzzles, yep. Whoa. Diane's been committing murder and disposing of the bodies. We've been watching Bones, so I'm plotting mine. Deb, what do you got?
I read a book series by a guy by the name of Mark Schweitzer, who writes liturgical mysteries. And it's set in St. Germain, North Carolina. He's the chief of police, but also has channeled in his own mind Raymond Chandler, who was a great mystery writer, the noir stuff. And so they're sillier than heck, but get a lot of things happen in the church because he's the organist and choir director at the Episcopal Church. And they're silly and they're light, but they're funny.
Yeah.
And so there's 15 books. I've read them all.
Awesome.
So that was fun.
John, what you got your hand up there?
Yeah, I've been reading a book by Larry Tye called Demagogue, The Life and Times of Joseph McCarthy. And that should be required reading for everybody who's ever lived in Wisconsin. Fascinating book.
And he also solves mysteries as the choir director of his church. I'm going to just start combining books together. So I'll say that, for me, a lot of folks have been checking in for me. I'm very thankful for that. We all have been healthy. I had to lean into some of the things that I've loved to do that weren't out and about. So when Zoe rests and Kate naps, I went back to playing video games. And, I'm of the age when we grew up with video games. So I'm going to be the guy in the nursing home, retirement home with his PS8 at that point, I'm sure, playing his video games. Did that, trying to get some reading done. But the little one doesn't cooperate so much. She's 3 every day, every minute of every day. So it's a lot. But we're thankful for that. Kate and I go into the office together. Grace Hudson Merritt comes over and watches her Tuesdays and Wednesdays during the day, and that's excellent. It's been a lot of fun. We don't go out. We don't eat at restaurants. We don't go out on the patio. We go for walks. We play in our backyard. Zoe runs through the sprinklers. But we are abundantly cautious. Kate's a little braver than I am. I still don't like to go to the grocery store, if I don't have to. But we're, staying positive, keeping up. It's taxing though. As I said in that sermon a couple of weeks ago, that everything just feels heavy because you've got to balance not only your responsibility, but the apparent responsibilities of others that are either being accepted or neglected. And that's tough. And, it's every day we learn something new, it seems like. So we got about a couple minutes left. Anything else you want to chit chat about?
No, we're good.
The Milwaukee reciprocal saw. Bye for now. Thanks, Al.
Yeah, this is my new buddy.
Hope to soon see you all in person. Yeah, me too, buddy. What were you saying, Brian?
This is my new buddy, the Milwaukee Super Sawzall, and we felt like doing something constructive. This has allowed us to totally rip out our kitchen and dining room, which is sort of behind us here, and are now reconstructing. And so we've been doing something constructive out of frustration and dealing with contractors, we just tore into it. We're having a great time. So.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I have been fortunate. I've been able to do 2 weddings so far, and I've got 1 more scheduled for the end of the month. I got to marry the Bargren's daughter. I mean, like Travis married her, but I did the service, and did 2. I'm doing another one at Calvary Presbyterian here at the end of the month for a guy who is the art director for Rikshi Tea. For what that's worth. No, don't touch that. No touching and meeting just yet. She loves pushing the red buttons. I mean, let's be honest, that's not the only button she's pushing these days. But
awesome.
You guys miss all my corny jokes, right?
We do.
Yes, we do. I was going to say another C word in terms of my jokes, but we're being recorded here. So yeah, Zoe's growing. Her vocabulary is crazy. You know, she told Kate to chill out the other day. You know, you know, I was working on something and she just goes, Dad. She calls me my dad sometimes, or my father, which is kind of creepily Victorian, you know.
That's awesome.
And said, my father, calm. I'm like, it's like you try living with you and you tell me to be calm.
Oh, it's funny.
So yeah, lots of fun. Well, I think, are we done?
We can wrap up. Yep.
I think we're good. Hey, listen, I'm so thankful you came on and chit-chatted with me and us together. If this was helpful for you, please know that you can email me. Email is the best way to get a hold of me, honestly. You can call me on my cell, or you could text. That works too. If you call the church office, know I'm there Tuesday, Wednesdays, Thursdays, and we'll do my best to call you back then. But predominantly, I'm at home. But email, text, it all comes together in the same place. And if you want to get involved in the worshiping life of the church, we can always use liturgists. We can always use folks to participate. You know, if you're working on an interesting hobby, if you're doing this or that, you know, member minutes are fun too. But we just really hope that you all can pray for us as we navigate this. Nobody knows what it's like to, you know, do this, except for those who are doing it, you know, and we're learning, we're making the road by walking it. So we appreciate your all's trust and flexibility. And I really wish that I was able to tell you, you know, in 2 weeks we'll be able to get back, but such is life. But I'm honored that you continue to place your trust in us, and we are humbled and honored to do this work with you.
And thank you, Brett, for all that you're doing. We appreciate it.
Well, thank you. It's been good. You know, I'm thankful for folks like Dawn and Dimitri and the staff and Joni who are great partners for doing this work together. I'm thankful for committees, our session, who has learned to do things like e-voting and just being nimble as we can. And for the folks who kind of continues to show that they care about the life of the church.
Yeah.
Right. Oh,
go ahead.
I'll one note too. My friend and neighbor, her and her boyfriend, came a few times to church. And since we've been home, she's been tuning in, and she has said on multiple occasions how impressed she is with our church, and just with the community, with the sermons, but specifically she likes the topic. She's like, where was this in my church when I was a teenager? Like this would have totally helped. So I know she's like, well, you know, they're going to look to actually like join the church, especially after this summer.
Oh, very cool.
So just wanted to let you know.
You know, I will tell you that one of the things that I've learned was that since I went on to this kind of like answering questions from the congregation and going in a more of a topical direction, that folks' experience of the sermons has gone like this. Like, I hear a lot of comments about what they hear and how helpful they've been and things like that. And so, you know, one of the things that we'll explore with the worship committee is whether or not we need to consider doing things like this, you know, not just during the summer, but you know, throughout the year. And so that might mean that we go to a more kind of sermon series like format rather than just a straight liturgical march through the seasons, but obviously we would still be respectful for you know, the Advent stories at Advent and the Easter stories for Easter. But there's a lot of good opportunity, I think, to be challenged by Scripture. I will say that in September, I'm starting up a series that I'm tentatively calling Hidden Figures, about the women of the Old Testament that we just really don't know anything about.
Oh, yay.
That's awesome.
And that's going to be good. I'm also going to look to recruit some different voices to lead us in worship and preach during that time, because there's only so much that as a, you know, middle-aged white straight guy, cisgendered male could experience in these stories. But I think that some boots on the ground, real world experience in how to understand some of this stuff, I think could be deeply helpful. So I'm going to take advantage of the breaks that the worship committee has afforded me, and as we go forward. But I also plug at the 1st of September, we're having Music Sunday, and then where it will like one of our old school music Sundays.
Cool.
All right, friends. Well, Godspeed.
Thank you.
So much love to everyone. It's so good seeing you. Let me know if you have any questions, and I'll save this and I'll post this on Facebook and probably YouTube or something like that before too long.
Okay.
All right, take care.
Have a good day.
Lots of love.
Bye.
Bye, y'all.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.